from California.
Checking in from the left coast where we take sound that combines sunshine with rhyme, move 'em around. Take it slow, watch the smoke we blow. Bring California swing and this thing for show.
Welcome to the Double I Show. I'm Sweet T, and with me as always,
R.W. King. What's going on, T?
oh, it's a beautiful night tonight, King. I feel the energy in the air. How about you?
Yeah, same, man. Of course. You know what I mean? We're just trying to get started a little bit late today on our end, but hey, man, we got to get this thing rolling. We got a lot to talk about today, T.
Lot popping. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started, King. I kind of want to take us back a little bit to last week when we were talking about, the cops kneeling and everything and how some of it didn't seem.
Hey, I don't mean to cut you off, T, but before that, man, let's just say hello to everybody, man.
I thought we were going to roll into it, but
weeks,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah, no, let's always say hello to everybody, man. Thanks for everybody for, listening to us, man. We got a lot going on. We got a lot in our heads we want to spew out. It was like last week when I did the same thing. So
Yeah.
I just going to cut in like he did last week and say, hey, thanks to all the first responders again. Thanks to all the people making a difference out there. Folks, be safe. Thanks to all the listeners across the country. Thanks for the support to us. We appreciate you. We appreciate you listening to us. And in these times, we hope we're giving you some kind of levity in these times, So go ahead, Tina. Go ahead and get into it.
No, absolutely. So I just wanted to kind of get us started with kind of going back to last week a little bit, what we were talking about with the, how we were saying, do you feel that the cops were being genuine or were they just kind of, I don't know, just trying to save face and calm the crowds down when they started taking knees, right? So there was a cop in New Jersey that came out and he was a lieutenant and he came out and he went to his fellow cops and apologized because he said that he didn't believe in what he did and that didn't represent the values of how he felt of him taking that knee. And it just kind of goes to show you, King, that I mean, we kind of sniffed it out, right? We kind of called it out. There was only a couple of officers that did it that seemed like it was genuine. And the other ones just kind of seemed like they were just playing the part, right?
Well, I think the thing is you got to sort of applaud that guy either way. He said what he believed, whether it be right or wrong or how we believe it. At least he was honest enough to come out and say what he believes. So I think that's, hey, kudos to him. At this time, though, it just doesn't show good to him because of the position he's in. Obviously, that shows you that the mentality's fucked up.
Well, but is it what he believes? I mean, is it though? When you think about it, how do we know what he truly believes now? Did he mean it with the protesters by taking the knee and saying what he did to them, or is he lying to his fellow officers just because he was catching flack internally? You know what I mean? So like, what?
Yeah,
is
but
really?
but you're hearing about one guy making a statement. He can't speak for everybody. And here's an example I'll give you. Like I read an article and I saw even a backup on it on CNN, and it sort of just solidified the article to me. You know what I mean? And what it was the same type of thing in Minneapolis. A guy came out and said, I didn't believe in kneeling. I didn't kneel when they told me to kneel. So I'm not going to do that. I don't believe that. So, of course, the media makes it seem in their story like it's everybody on the force.
No, look,
Another group of officers wrote a letter, 14 officers, and said they speak for the vast majority of us that we did believe in it. There are people here who didn't believe in it, though.
Right.
And yeah, so I truly believe there. It's the same as what we said before. It's not so much about the bad apples, but it's the guy who's growing the orchard, right? And that's sort of the system. So they're sort of allowing that to continue. If you have guys that are making those decisions on their own, saying, okay, yeah, man, hey, I don't want to do this. I'm good with kneeling. I don't believe in this shit. No. But you got other guys saying there's a mixed message, right?
Right. Well, here's the thing though, right? And if you don't want to take a knee because you don't believe in it, fuck, and at least you own it, right? And you're being honest about it. What bothers me is when you take a knee and you don't mean it. And you didn't mean it. You didn't feel it, but you did it just to appease the crowd. To me, that's wrong. That's bullshit. You know what I mean? That's fake. And that's what we were calling out last week, right? And we were right. It just kind of shows that, our intuition was kind of right. Don't you think?
Well, you can tell the ones that did it just to appease them. You could tell the way that they were doing it. It wasn't sincere.
Yeah.
Their body language showed it. It wasn't hiding it.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, to start off with saying, that we were just, at least our initial thoughts were reaffirmed during the week. Right. So it just kind of goes to show you now. I don't know if you heard about this or if you saw the video on it or not, but in a lot of cities, there was actually a lot of National Guard deployed all over the place. But this one video made it known and went a little viral was a black National Guardsman, and he was standing post and everything, and you can see his mouth, and he's kind of saying the words and the chants of what the protesters were saying. And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about when a lot of this went down and we started talking about everything that was going on, was what it must feel like when you believe in what the protesters are marching for and protesting for, but you're over there having to hold the line and do your job, and how tough that must be, right? And how conflicting that is. And that came out too. And that I found was very difficult, and kind of, I don't know, it was just something like a sight to see when I saw that he's over there mouthing the chants and everything. And it kind of resonated with me a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It's definitely something that's moving, but now just think of this and step back and think of it the logical way. How many soldiers were deployed? How many were doing that? That's the question, right?
Yeah.
Is how many of them didn't care and they were there ready to do whatever they needed to do.
Oh yeah, there's definitely that. Definitely. But
right. And that's the question, right? Because that's where you want to know the divide. How many have the right understanding and understand this, and how many don't get it? Right. And that's sort of, like you said, it resonates. Yeah, like that was one person.
Of course.
Think of it backwards. How many total were thinking that way? Just not worried about what this guy would do. He was mouthing it. Sure, that was great. How many were even thinking that they supported it? And what the fuck am I doing here?
Why?
What the fuck?
Yeah, why am I here?
I didn't sign up for this.
I didn't sign up to fucking fight my own fellow countrymen.
Correct. Exactly. I fought to defend my country.
Yeah. Not to bring it down.
I signed up to fight to defend my country if I had to.
Right.
Not to fight the people in my country.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know
right?
I mentioned the one National Guard that's a listener, and he had reached out to me, and I mentioned that, he was deployed, and he's already back, and he contacted me and we talked about a little bit. And he actually said exactly what you were saying. He goes, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up to attack my own fellow Americans. He goes, I took an oath to defend this country, not to go out there and start, attacking my fellow countrymen. And that was difficult for him. That was something very hard for him personally,
Well, you got to think of it this way too, T, right? Especially here on the West Coast. If that guy, even if he's my age, which I'm older than you, obviously, even if he was my age, he probably wouldn't have been able to do that or was doing that at the time of the Rodney King riots. That's the only other time around here when the National Guard was deployed in those type of situations.
Right.
They've been here for earthquakes, for disaster, to help people do things like that, set up, triage centers, things like that, right?
Totally
That's
different.
typically what they're for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The only other places they have those is where they have those big protests, and typically they're large groups of angry black people who had injustice done to them, and somebody got killed, and typically you see these big movements, in these other areas, but they don't happen here on the West Coast. So guys on the National Guard on the West Coast, They don't see that shit, T.
No, actually, yeah, King, I don't know if you remember this. But this was, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 years ago when the whole Black Lives Movement kind of started. Do you remember that big thing in Texas where I think it was like 6 officers got shot during a protest demonstration because an ex-military guy who happened to be black just kind of snapped. He had enough, and he was doing a sniper rifle, and he was picking off cops, and he actually some of the protesters as well. He just started shooting.
Yeah,
Do you
I
remember that?
remember that.
Was the National
Yeah.
Guard out for that? That's why I asked that, because that was the last
Well,
time. I
anytime
remember
there's
anything.
like a situation like that, they typically call them out just for support. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because they have better weapons and things like that to combat these type of guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
I just don't remember
and
if they
that's
were
typically
actually.
what happens. But it depended
Yeah.
too on how fast they killed the guy
Yeah.
or they captured
Well,
him. I don't remember
they
what they
sent in the
did.
robot, and the robot killed him. I don't know if you remember that. He was held up in like a parking structure, and they sent in one of those robots, and the robot was armed with a gun and killed him.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first time I've ever seen
That's pretty
anything like
cool.
that. Yeah.
I never heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they
But
basically told you if you don't come out, the robot's going to go in there and kill you.
pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. But I don't remember.
So they don't have it. There's no other choice. We're going to
Correct.
go in there and kill you.
Either way, you're done because you just killed 6 cops. You know what I mean? There's no way that they're going to let that
Yeah,
go.
I guess at that point, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason we have to try to take you in.
Right. Exactly.
You know, because
But
yeah,
I don't
it's
remember
not
the
like
National
you know,
Guard being there at that time. Like, I don't think
and it
they,
might
they
not
were
have
able to
been. You know what I
deploy
mean?
fast
Yeah,
enough.
it's one person. You know what I mean? They typically are for mass situations
Right.
when there's a lot of people that are affected or involved.
Right.
You know, like national disasters, things like that. Natural disasters, things like that. You know, so they're always involved, especially like, you know, in the Hurricane Alley and stuff like that. They're always helping those folks over there, you know, get back. Tornado Alley.
Yeah.
They're always deployed over there to clean up and help those things and bring in their equipment and do what they got to do. But rarely do they do these type of things. And again, like we spoke about the last couple of weeks, Steve, there's never been anything like this.
No.
It's still going.
It is.
It's 2 weeks in and it's still going.
Well, okay. You were telling me about everything that's going on too in what is it, Seattle? I think it was. You were kind of educating me.
What do you
on
mean
that.
you think it is? That's the biggest story out
Yeah,
there. Of
but
course,
I mean-
dude. They took over a city. They took over a piece of the
They
city.
did.
That's the biggest news out there right now. I mean, this is unprecedented. This is a point where they basically told the police, get out. The police made a stand by a precinct in an area in Seattle, and the crowd basically overtook them, and the police had to withdraw and leave the building, abandon the building. And they have not been able to come back because the crowd is not left. And they've developed a co-op there, and they have sectioned off an area, and everything is free. They have services. They have everything else. Everyone's taking care of everybody. There's no crime. There's no police. People are taking care of everybody.
But if you hear some of these right wingers describe what's going on, they're saying it's total lawlessness. They make it sound like if it was, Mad Max, Battle Dome, all that, in the Thunderdome shit. I mean, really.
So the lawlessness that I've seen is I've seen people walking around smoking weed.
Yeah.
I've seen people
Seattle.
walking around drinking alcohol because there's no cars allowed
Right.
in that zone. So people are only walking. It's like a big festival.
Yeah. It looked like
There's a lot of people from the outside coming in to see the experience.
Right. It's like a bunch of hippies.
They're supporting it.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, I wouldn't even say that. It's more the fact of people saying, okay, look, this is not what the police do. They work for us. They're not here to tell us what we and how we have to live. That's not what the police are for.
Right.
And that's what this movement is across the country. And then you have our idiot president basically going out on his social media saying, look, Seattle mayor, take your city back now. If you don't, I will. And this guy is just dividing his country, dividing everything. She's come out and rebutted to him.
And the mayor.
I don't need your help. We don't need your help.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need your help.
Yeah.
We're okay.
Exactly. And the funny thing is he doesn't have that authority to do that because
I mean,
it clearly,
whether he does or not, the point is okay. Think about before we even get there, T.
yeah.
What's going to happen to the local police department? Are they ever going to be able to go back? Because it's like I mentioned to you too. The protesters are still there, and the organizers are there, and they're speaking to the media. And I heard them say, "Look, yeah, they're going to be able to come back here, but they're only going to be able to come back, get their shit, and leave. They're never going to be able to have a police department here again. We're going to turn this building into a community center."
Yeah.
And
I mean,
okay, here's the thing. At this point, I think the city is going to do that.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And there's a lot of other things that are underlying here and things that we have to start looking at in the big picture, right? Okay, this can set a precedence across the country now. And like your term that I like to use too, it's going to embolden a lot of people in these massive protest movements to do the same thing.
Right.
And unfortunately, what's going to happen is loss of lives. And that's what I'm afraid of. That people are going to look at this as a model because this thing really hasn't slowed down. The protests are typically peaceful, but now you're seeing these huge protests, not the small little ones that people were really on it in the beginning, T, like the ones they just had in LA last week. There must have been 200,000 people.
There was roughly. Yeah. Okay. But
250,000 people, easy.
But King, explain to me what you mean by loss of lives. Like how so? How do you feel that?
Because the police are going to know what the people are going to try to do. They're going to defend themselves differently.
Okay. All right. So
they're going to use force. They're going to be given the authority to use force. And it's like we've talked about, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. And we just talked about this a little while ago. It doesn't matter the one guy or whatever else. There are those guys out there. They'll say, fuck yeah, they told me I can use force. I'm taking them out. Don't come at me, bro.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you know it's going to happen. There are going to be those that are going to restrain themselves and not do that. But there are going to be the ones that do that. And unfortunately, that's what's going to cause the whole chaos. One bullet starts the waterfall.
I mean, that's going to send whatever city that is into total lawlessness.
Correct. And that's my fear.
Yeah.
That's not justified. That what they're really doing in Seattle, but what that model is showing everybody else and there's other cities that are extremely fired up right now. And the one that I'm thinking about is New York.
That place is a powder keg.
Okay, remember, this started a while ago. This started about 4 or 5 years ago, and it really started with Rikers Island. They've always had a bad history in New York PD. But Rikers Island, it basically got so bad, and so much shit was going on there that they had to move to shut it down.
Yeah.
So they started building other jails, and those jails won't be ready till 2026, but that's when they're shutting down Rikers. And all those fucking cops over there that are fucking putting into the bullshit.
No.
And it started with Kalief Browder. That's the guy who came out and basically squealed on Rikers.
Yeah.
He basically wouldn't take a plea. Right. Like 89% of the guys that are in there that they can't prove a court case against T, they stuff them in Rikers and they wait them out. They keep delaying the trial, keep not available, this and that. Kalief Browder was arrested for suspicion of stealing a backpack. He was 15 years old. They put him in Rikers. He had to pay $900 bail. They couldn't afford to pay it. He was in there for 3 years. In solitary confinement over 2 years.
Over a backpack.
89% of the people in Rikers just plea out because they can't take it anymore. Even if they didn't do it, T.
Yeah.
I'll take the plea deal. Well, okay, now you go do 6 months and wherever. You know what I mean?
King, think about this. They killed George Floyd over $20. You know what I mean? That just proves a point. What you were saying, This is
I mean, but it's the culture too, and that's what I was going to get at, right?
Yeah, it's a systemic racism.
Same thing in Minneapolis. It was the culture there that allowed all four of those guys to do what they did.
Right.
And that's what has to change. And right now it's changing. Culture's changing. This is the biggest movement we'll ever see in our lifetime.
Exactly.
And it's changing. Let me make a comment to you. I don't know if you've heard, but every cop show got taken off the fucking air.
Yeah.
Cops is off
Cops
after
is
33 years.
The Paramount
Live
Network.
PD gone. All those things are gone.
Yep. Done.
In a heartbeat.
In a blink.
There
of an
goes
eye.
the cops being glorified.
Yeah. Hollywood too,
Right?
right? I mean, think about this. Hollywood has glorified and kind of.
Is it Hollywood or is it ratings? They're getting people that are watching it. If people sit there and watch it, and unfortunately, the bad guys watch it too.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Probably more than the good guys,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
You know what I'm
definitely.
saying?
Hell yeah.
Right? You know, right?
Hell yeah.
The guys who they sort of shut it off to sort of protect are watching that shit more.
Right.
You know, those guys who are fucking borderline fucking criminals, you know, that are out there, you know, doing whatever, stealing, doing whatever. They want to know how these guys fucking bust people. Are they ever going to be able to get back into the precinct?
Well, that's
That's the biggest question,
That's what
right?
I was getting at.
That's what we have to understand. Is this going to be something where the police are going to have to go in there with force and do this, or are they going to be able to mediate? Because basically, I don't think there's going to be mediation.
There won't be
I think
force.
the police are either going to have to go in there and take it over by force.
No,
and
there-
I
there
don't
won't
think
be.
the governor or the mayors are going to allow that.
No, they won't. They won't allow
So
that.
again, now that sets a precedent. They kick the police out of their precinct. What is that going to do to the rest of the country?
Now let's think about this though, right? Let's just stick with Seattle before we tackle the rest of the country. What would it look like if that turned into a community center? You still have to have police in the area, right? But maybe the police aren't carrying guns, or maybe they're not, driving around, things like that. What if they're how we see in certain areas here in Los Angeles where they're on bicycles? They're more community involved type police, right? They're not as threatening looking, things like that. They're more friendlier towards the community. They're more engaged with the community. I think something
So
like
what
that
a lot
would
of
work.
people are comparing this to is Camden. What they did in Camden is basically a couple of years ago, the people did the same thing.
Right.
They were having too many of these issues, and they basically protested to a point where they said, we got to get rid of the police department. And they did.
Yeah.
And basically, and what happened is that the county took over and the state took over. And the state decided to run the police department. And everyone thinks that sort of they defunded the police. They didn't. They defunded the private sector police. So now it was a state-run police, and they handled it much differently. Like you said, they put guys on the street to interact with the people, not to show force.
Right.
They put them on the beat, walking in the streets. They put them on bicycles. They put them in areas, in common areas, walking around. So there was a presence and people interacted with them.
Yeah, because
Much
you shouldn't
different. And
fear.
the crime rate escalated straight down.
Yes, because you shouldn't have to be walking in fear just because you see an officer and they look like a force and a presence. You shouldn't have to worry about that. You should be walking up to them and, just say, hey, how's it going? What's up?
Again, like I said, and I'm asking the question to you, what's going to happen if they allow this? And yet, I'm not talking about to really get into detail about every other city in the country. What's going to set the precedent? And is this going to make some of these other people in these protests in these other cities follow them?
I think they will follow them, or they'll attempt to follow them.
If they will attempt to follow them, right? And that's the scary part to me, man.
I think some places they'll be successful, right? We already see in Minnesota, that's where, or Minneapolis, excuse me. They're already looking at doing the exact same thing, what you just described, right? So they're already talking about that. So they've already actually voted. Their city council voted for it. Now they're just it's going to be like a year before all that takes into effect. So they're already on that path. They didn't have to go to the point what you're talking about right now. But I feel that other cities or other protesters are going to try it in other cities. And I think they'll be successful in some cases, and in other cases, depending on the city and the area that they're at. I don't think I think it's going to be kind of scary, like what you said, right? There could be potential life of
I'm
loss
going
of
to go
life.
on record right now to say that the success rate's going to be about 0%. T.
Really? I'll take the
I
over.
do. I don't. I just don't think that it's just the governments are going to allow that, and they're going to exercise the use of lethal force.
I think it depends on where you're at.
No, I don't. I just think that that's what's going to happen, because the reality is they really don't want what's happening in Seattle to be happening. The government doesn't. The city government, the state government, they don't want that happening there. But it's happening, and they're dealing with it. And they're dealing with it the right way. They're not going to go in there violently and change this, because that's not what this is about.
That's
people
what
are trying to have their voice. And it's like the best thing that I heard was the mayor say this: everybody was born with one mouth, but 2 ears. You can listen a lot more than you can talk.
Yeah.
And we need to start listening. And that was the best thing that I heard them say. And the reality is, yeah, you're right. They have to have a voice, and we have to do these things. And our country was built on revolution. But this is a delicate balance, T, especially with what we got going on in the White House. If these other cities, these bigger cities, where the infrastructure is different, the special interests are different, I see National Guard deployed and the use of force. And the reality is basically all these things happen, and they calm down when the National Guard comes in, because they do show force. And they don't use it, but they show it. Now, if they're given authority to use it, that's scary.
Okay.
Because it's like we said, right? At some point, it doesn't matter the percentage, someone's going to do it.
So let me throw this out there, right? You know as well as I do, there's a lot of guns out there. And if either the police or the National Guard start showing force, do you think that they would be safe? And I'm not saying that protesters are going to do this, but you never know, right? You're going to get a couple guys that are they're tired and they're sick of this shit, and they're going to go full on revolution, and they're going to fight back.
And they're all going to die, T.
Yeah. And
because you know what? No matter what weapon they have, they can't fight a tank. Okay, and that's the bottom line. You can't be ignorant to that fact.
I'm not saying that.
I'm not saying you.
Yeah.
I'm saying in general. It's not directed at you, T. This is in general. You cannot be ignorant to the fact of thinking, I'm going to go out there with my 357 and I'm going to fight these guys. If you're thinking that way, they're going to go out there and get killed.
It'll be
and that's my whole point.
It'll be a sad fucking day in this country's history.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how many people do that, T.
No,
because it's like I said, no matter how, like you said, yeah, a revolution starts. And all these people have weapons. No matter what they have in their home, it doesn't compare to what those guys have.
I agree.
I'm a weapons guy.
No, I know that.
You know what I mean? So there's no question that they would all die. So I don't think anyone's really going to do that. It may be one or two people. My bigger fear is that they've authorized use of lethal force, and that one trigger gets pulled. And next thing you know, it's mayhem. And that's the bigger problem.
And like I was trying to say, though, it'd be a sad day in this country's history when you see a fucking tank rolling down on a crowd of fellow Americans. That's sad. That takes me back to watching, the Chinese protester that stopped the tank in the middle of the street. Do you remember that years ago? And that's sad.
It happened here for Rodney King. There were tanks rolling in South Central.
And that was sad. And I don't.
It is sad,
I don't know
but that's the only way that they feel. That's the only way they can gain control again. And the reality was that it wasn't peaceful back then.
No.
And once they did that, everything stopped. It's just the whole movement keeps growing, T.
It does.
And it's like we talked about last week. You know, this thing's not going to lose momentum. I mean, and it's going to continue. It's going to continue through sports. It's going to continue through actors and entertainers. It's going to continue through government people, just huge personalities, people that are out there. And at some point, right, this change is just starting to happen so fast. And things are going on.
It's a wave.
I mean, look at the way they repealed already 50A in New York. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, that's what, 1976.
Go ahead and talk about that a little bit, man. Yeah, go ahead and talk about that.
So in 1976, 50A was put in place to be able to shield any of the private records of police and any kind of disciplinary actions or even any kind of complaints against them. So the public never really knew or saw anything to do with any cops.
It also gave fellow officers the ability not to snitch on anybody, not to say anything.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. You're good. You're good. But so this thing, what? It's 43 years old, going to be 44 years old. This law in place over there in New York. And so now how do you know if a cop is really truly getting disciplined or investigated or anything? You don't, right? And you know, another cop is not going to police another cop. It's like what we were saying. This is the culture, right? It enabled that culture. And now Cuomo has finally said, you know what? Fuck this. Enough is enough. We're tired. This has to get fixed. Like you were saying, we've lost the public's trust. We need to be more transparent. We need to hold our police accountable. And so he's repealing 50A and saying it's over. It's done. Now everything is public knowledge. And that police union is flipping out.
Well, yeah, because they can't they're not going to be able to keep their guys on the force.
Right.
Remember, I always say this, and the bad thing is, right, is the unions they're powerful and they were good for our country, building up our industries and doing that. But the problem is they kept bad people in jobs because they're paying their union dues. And that's what's going to happen here.
It's all about numbers.
That's what's happening here. And now they can't do it anymore. So they're going to lose those dues.
Well, did you see the head of the new NYPD police union and that little press conference he gave? Did you see that? He had like 50 cops behind him. None of them were female. All of them were male, and all of them were white. It looked like there was one minority way in the back, and he was trying to look and trying to see what was going on, but he won. And he's over there grandstanding, saying, you know, we aren't the Minneapolis PD. We're not doing that. We're not doing this. How do you condemn all of us? Blah, 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 blah. Are you kidding me? Defund us. Are you kidding me? Blah, blah, blah. You know, dude, do you not know the history of your department? Do you not realize that you guys are the ones that have killed so many unarmed minorities in your fucking city? And you're going to go out there and you're trotting out a bunch of white male cops behind you? Get the fuck out of here. How tone deaf are you?
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
They don't fucking get it. They're a fucking gang. They are just as bad as any gang out there on the street.
Who is they, T?
The police and the unions. Because they that
you
mentality.
Just included everybody, and I don't believe that.
I do, because it's the culture.
Split. There's not 100%. No. We were talking about that for 2 weeks.
Okay.
It's the same thing, right? You're in that culture, but you're still saying, what the fuck am I doing? They're not going to do the things that these other guys do.
But they can't.
They don't have those records. They go 20, 30 years.
But they can't say anything.
But there's guys who never, you're right.
That's the problem.
And Well, that's the problem everywhere.
Why would you?
We just had an issue here in LA, right, where a guy beat the shit out of a guy, and there was an officer right there next to him who
Yeah, we
didn't
talked
do
about
nothing.
We talked about
They
that.
don't do nothing.
Okay. Now understand
right?
why,
But it's
though.
their job to do it.
About 6 or 7 years ago, do you remember that guy that went crazy and was shooting police officers? And there was this big manhunt in Southern California, and they ended up having like, you know, a couple hundred officers that surrounded him in Big Bear, and then they torched the building and killed him. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? That happened
Yeah.
about 6, 7 years ago. You know, he was a cop. Okay. And he was black. And why did that happen? Why did he go and rage against the police officers? Because he was a black cop and his partner was a white female cop. And the white female cop started beating a suspect. And he didn't think that was right. It was unprovoked. There was no call for it. So he went to his superiors and he filed a grievance and said, look, she's over there abusing people out on the street and it's not called for. You guys need to investigate her. This isn't right. This is not what we do. He spoke up. He was disciplined and he was fired. He went through all the judicial ways to try to get his job back. The union let him get fired. Why? Because he was a sacrificial lamb, because he's the bad apple, because he's the one trying to expose and trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And he was fucking
Was
fired.
he a sheriff or was he a city PD?
He was
What
LAPD. He was LAPD.
Oh, LAPD.
And he was fucking fired. Okay. And then when he exhausted every legal aspect, he wrote a manifesto and he fucking had enough. He was ex-military. He was ex-LAPD at that
Yeah,
time.
I remember that.
And then he went off shooting cops. I'm not saying it was right that he went shooting cops, but see what happens? Do you see what they did to this man? They destroyed his life. And then ultimately he died and took other cops with him in the process. For what? For one bad fucking cop? I don't think it's just one. He spoke up against a bad cop because he tried to do the right thing. This is why other cops that are good there get lumped in with everybody else, because they can't do the right thing. That's the culture.
Well, yeah, you're right. No. I think they get. It's not that they can't do the right thing. You're right. At that point, it's career preservation.
Right. Which is why I'm saying they can't. That's why I'm saying they can't. Because if they do, look what happens.
But yeah, and you're right. And so they get lumped in, but the reality is they aren't part of that lump. And that's what we've been discussing for 3 weeks.
But
is that society claims them as a lump. They're not. If they are and they aren't, even if they're 1% aren't, they're not. Because the reality is, they're good people.
I'm not saying
you're right. Shit happens, right? But that's the point, right? And does that make them a bad cop? That 99% of them don't squeal on them. Does that make them all bad cops? I mean, it doesn't.
Tough, it doesn't. It's a tough call because it doesn't. Because
and the thing that we're not knowing too is we've never been in that position.
True.
And I can't say that as I can only give my opinion from the outside, but as a person who lives that job every day, I can't really say what I would feel. You know what I mean?
No, it's hard. Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Because and we have to understand that, and that's I think the thing that people are missing. Put yourself in that spot. It's tough, and not everyone can do it. And I keep going back to that, right? That to me is the bigger thing, T. That's the bigger thing. They don't have the right people, and they're allowing people, like you said, these 50 people and this one guy to even fucking get empowered. How do they even fucking get up the ladder that much? Look at their attitudes. It's not like it just started.
When they
it cements the ones that are fucked up.
That's the point. And there's more fucked up than good. That's the problem, right? We always say, a few bad apples. I think it's the other way around. I think there's more bad apples.
I think there's a lot of bad apples.
There's more than good, I think there's more than good.
If you're going to call definitely there is. If you're going to call the cops that aren't stopping the other ones or telling on the other ones, then yeah, 1,000,000%. I agree
with that too. That's what I've been saying.
But
I said
don't
it
know
just a
if
few
that
minutes
makes
ago.
them a bad cop. Yeah,
I do.
To me, I don't know if that makes them
To
a bad
me,
cop.
I do.
Because the reality is, I mean, that's sort of how it's been, you know, and the one who's doing the lumping is the one who's going to get the one who's busted. Right. So, yeah.
Look at the corrections
thing.
officer in New Jersey that just got suspended because he had this big pro-Trump display as protesters were walking by. And what was he doing? He had another guy on the ground with his knee on the dude's neck, and they were mocking what happened to George Floyd. Turns out that fucking dude was a corrections officer. He's now been suspended. Okay. The other guy, the one that was on the floor pretending to be George Floyd, he's on tape, and his company saw that it was him, and they fired his ass. You know, but that's the mentality. See, do you see, like,
okay,
how are you mocking?
Mentality.
How are you mocking?
Forget about the mentality.
How are you mocking
right?
somebody's
What about this,
death?
Key? Wait a minute. I agree. It's horrible. But in our country, don't they have the right to speak their mind? We're protesting against that, right?
Correct. But here's the thing. Here's the difference.
They have the right. If he's not hurting anybody,
here's the difference.
Or breaking any laws,
here's
right,
the difference.
Then we have to understand
if it is your job to uphold the law, and if it's your job to be to make sure that equality is given to all citizens, and you're over there mocking the death, you have no empathy for that, for your fellow human being, then how can you do your job effectively? How can I trust that you just made
you made a good point right now, and I think what we have to do, T, is I want to get one of these oaths that these officers take, because I don't think equality's in there. I don't think that term's in there.
Maybe not.
I'm pretty sure it's not. So I want to get a couple of them, because that's a good point.
Yeah.
Right? That starts from the beginning.
Right.
Because you're sworn to uphold the law.
Correct.
You're not sworn to equality, and there's nothing in there for that. Right? So that's really, that's a good point. You know, and that's the thing, right? That's up to the person. And right, at this movement now, and, you know, all these other issues that we've talked about for years and years, yeah, sure, there's definitely racial injustice going on everywhere. You know, we live in LA County, T, and I sent you an article last week, and we didn't talk about it, and I want to talk about it a little bit here.
Yeah.
And it sort of shows the disparity between the races who have been killed by police altercations, unarmed civilians been killed by police altercations in LA County. So it includes all the city police and the LA County sheriffs since 2000. And there's been a lot of deaths, like 2,000, something like that. And half of them were Latinos.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest percentage of it. And it's a demographic here.
Correct.
And there's a huge Latino population, but it still shows you that it's still a color.
Yeah.
And white was very low on the list.
It always is.
So, and that's what you have to be concerned about, right? It doesn't matter the city. Sure, we might not have the black population here, but the police are still lashing out and doing these things against color.
You know,
and that's the bigger problem.
Yeah. That reminds me of Tulsa, Oklahoma. The shithead in chief is going to be doing a unity speech in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which has a horrible, horrible history against minorities. Was it back in the 60s? They killed a bunch of black people. I mean, the history is so horrific over there, and yet he's going to do a unity speech. And the guy that wrote that unity speech is a fucking white supremacist, Steve Miller, that works in the White House. How do you do that shit, right? But then the police lieutenant,
because it's their mentality, T.
It is. Like,
you know, they in their head, I bet you this guy thinks he's doing these guys a solid.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Sure. Like, fuck, hey, I'm stepping up, dude. I'm doing my part.
Right.
What do you mean? Hey, right. Steve, help me out. Write me some good shit.
Correct.
You know what
exactly.
I mean? You're the best I know, bro. Right?
And the dude's a known white supremacist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but they're not even worried about that part.
Oh, because he doesn't care. He lacks any empathy.
Yeah.
He lacks self-awareness.
He's not worried about that part.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not even worried about that part.
But then to top
No,
it all,
and I just said, in his mind, he thinks he's doing a solid.
exactly. No, you're right. You're fucking right. 100. So over there in Tulsa, right? So the black population is 19% of the overall, population in Tulsa. Okay. Yet, percentage wise, how much are blacks targeted by the police? And that's over 67% of the people targeted by the police are black. And blacks are only 19% of the overall population over there. So what does that tell you about the policing over there?
T, you really got to invest a little time and watch that documentary, that Khalif Browder documentary, because they talk about, even in like New York and everywhere, there's disparities in numbers like that.
Yeah.
In all facets of life, that just people of color and especially blacks are held back.
They are,
and they're oppressed and they're targeted. And it shows, and you can't hide a plain number. It's a fact.
It's a fact.
And that's data. The thing, right?
Yeah.
That's data. It's solid data. No one's just asking you if you think it's this or that. This is what it is.
Exactly. And
right? This is their population number, and this is how many of them get arrested.
Right.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
And we have to understand that it shouldn't be how many of them get arrested. It should be the mentality. It's still people. All of us are getting arrested. They're just arrests.
No.
But I understand the classification and the targeting, and that's our point.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the same thing here in LA County.
Well, I was just going to tell you.
LA County Jail is 80-some% Latino.
Because of demographic, but still minority.
But who's targeted? Exactly.
Right.
The minority, the color.
Yes.
And that's the problem, right? You only have so many areas in Southern California that are basically Hispanic neighborhoods. East Los Angeles, Maywood, Huntington Park, areas like that. And those are the ones that are targeted by the police.
It's pathetic. It's sad.
And that's the whole point. It doesn't matter the city. You could find that number anywhere. That Khalif Browder story, same thing in New York. It's crazy the number of inmates in Rikers that are black. How many of them in solitary confinement are black? And they show these numbers. This thing was directed by and produced by Jay-Z. Jay-Z heard this kid's story. And it's amazing to you. This kid was arrested. He was 15 years old for the backpack, $900 bail, couldn't get out, and exposed all this shit. Said, I'm not going to plead guilty to something I didn't do. After 3 years, they said, okay, in the middle of the night, you know what? You're out, dude. They dropped the case. Huh? What do I do? He's in solitary confinement for over 2 years. His brain is mush.
Yeah.
They talk about that. The psychiatrists talk about it. That people that are trained, Navy SEALs, FBI agents, CIA agents, they can't endure more than 3 or 4 days like that. This guy was in there for 2 years.
They just destroyed him. They destroyed him.
They starved him. He couldn't eat. They wouldn't let him shower. When they did let him shower, they kicked his ass in the shower. And about a year after he was out, he started gaining some popularity and some people supporting him. Rosie O'Donnell. He was on the Rosie O'Donnell show. And all of a sudden, this thing came out. He got wind of it. And some reporter got a hold of surveillance footage inside of Rikers.
Wow. And
a lot of this footage was him getting beat up by the guards.
Oh, shit. I got to see this.
And it's a sad thing to you at the end. The kid ends up committing suicide at the end because he just can't take it anymore.
Damn.
And he was ready to settle a case with the city to be a millionaire. So he was just troubled. His mom said when he got home, when he got out of jail, like I was saying, middle of the night, here, dude, get out of here. All they did was give him a Metro card to get on the subway. They didn't give him a phone call. They didn't give him nothing. So he couldn't make a call. He couldn't do nothing. So he just got on the subway, went home.
Yeah, what the fuck do they
He
care?
showed up like 5 or 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
Knocking on the door after 3 years.
Yeah.
And his mom said, I know he showed up and I knew who it was, but it wasn't my son.
Yeah.
And she was showing his room and and it had all these holes in it, in the walls, where she said he would just wake up in the middle of the night screaming and punching the walls.
PTSD.
He was wrecked. They wrecked him.
They destroyed him. How do you do that to your fucking fellow human being?
Right?
How do you do that?
And these correction officers would just take shifts doing this over and over.
And they get paid to do that shit. That's the thing. We fucking embolden them to do that. We fucking pay them a salary. How do you go home to your fucking family like that, right? How do you look at your kids in the eyes?
To me, that's even worse because they feel they're protected from the public eye. They're not going to get caught in there. Because, there's surveillance, but they all do it so they don't get in trouble. So, fuck it, I'm going to do it too. But the guy on the street, you never know what's going to happen. And plus, fuck, you don't know what's going on out here. The guy's got weapons. Shit happens. I don't want nobody to mark me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I was going to say, it's not to do with the movie, but kind of going back to like what we were saying, man, like all these stats and the data and everything. I don't know if you saw this, but the FBI just today released some data about an area that you and I know very well. It's here in the Southland. It's in Southern California. It's Manhattan Beach. Manhattan Beach's population back in 2018 is around 35,000 people, 35,500, right? Ballpark figure. And residents, only 190 of them are black. That's less than 1%, right? And this is just a few years ago. But the police department's arrest records for the year of 2018, they arrested 225 black people. But the population's only 190. So they've been arresting way more than the actual population there. Does that sound right?
Wow.
You know what I mean? Does that sound like you're not trying to target somebody? Because that's what it sounds like to me.
No, but that's the sad thing is, P, it's like that in every city. Every city.
And this is the FBI. The FBI even warned too, saying that in Beverly Hills, black people are almost 21 more times likely to be arrested than white people. Malibu, 10 more times.
They know those numbers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How the fuck is it just coming out? If you're collecting the data, like the FBI does, where is,
okay,
because
why do you think it's coming out now?
Well, because of the movement. But here's the thing.
Of course. So it's showing good for the FBI. Look, hey, we're not hiding shit.
Well, actually, you
Look at all this data
because you knew this.
They were, but of course, but the masses aren't thinking that.
Oh,
we talk about that. People are sheep.
They are.
They see this number on the TV now. Oh, fuck, look at the FBI putting that shit out solid.
Yeah, but there's a lot of smart leaders out there that are going to be calling this shit out, right?
Right. Again, even if you look at the semi-autonomous zone, the protest, 250,000 people. There's 13.3 million people in LA.
Well, okay,
that's a drop.
But you also have.
So just say that 10 million aren't the brightest,
right?
And are just watching what's on TV. That's 3 times as many as the others. And I think that you know what I mean. So
I get it. I get where you're going. Yeah,
you know what I mean. But yeah, you're right. 100%, you're right. But it's sad, dude. It's sad that they're going to throw these numbers out now, but that's the way it's been. It's the way it's always been since I've been growing up.
Now, I mean,
I know our neighborhood was Latino.
Yeah,
there wasn't many black people there, and we were targeted all the time.
All the time.
Didn't matter, man.
No.
You're walking outside, stop you. Hey, what are you doing? What do you mean? Oh, I live here.
Yeah.
Really? Put your hands up. What? I fucking live here, right here.
Exactly.
You know how many times mom had to come out and fucking tell him, what are you doing to my son?
Yeah, I remember.
Go inside, man.
Fuck, I remember pulling up into the driveway, seeing him do that to you and a couple of friends for nothing. Yeah. Oh, because
we were going out to their car.
Yeah, and then I remember one of the cops trying to, because I was right next to mom, and the cop said, "Oh, well, we saw him smoking a joint," and they were looking through the cigarette thing trying to find any kind of fucking remnants of a joint. And it was
they had probable cause.
Yeah, and it was one dude that had a cigarette. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, no, that shit happened to me all the time too.
Yeah.
My favorite one was, "Where's your needles?" They thought I was a fucking druggie. You know,
Well,
it's
you
like,
look like it, Doug. Hey, you are what you are.
hey.
But hey, man, yeah, so much stuff going on, T. I mean, these things, let's just go and button that part up, man. There was a lot going on there, and I mean, it's a crazy time, T. And I think the biggest thing we talked about to me was, man, I hope this thing doesn't get violent, that the cops don't get the lethal force thing going, and people start looking at the thing that's going on in Seattle and try to do it, and they do it the wrong way. And
That's a valid concern.
Scary for me too.
It's a valid concern. It really is.
That to me is something that I wanted to talk about today. That's my biggest concern of what's going on.
Yeah.
So let's just go in and get into some sports, man. We got to start clearing our heads a little bit, man. We're on these topics, for a while, and it's tough, T.
It is,
because it's tough, and we got to bring levity. We got to talk about other things. Now we're back into the COVID thing, right? Because now all these sports are opening up. But now there's other issues going on.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they've basically committed to opening up.
Well,
golf's opened up. They started yesterday.
Or are they? Right? Right, King? I don't know. I mean, just tonight, as we're recording, right before this, the NBA had a big call with over 200 and something players on this call. And they all started saying things, right? The one thing that came out of it that I read before we jumped on to record was they all said, no matter what the outcome is, whatever they decide, they're going to decide it together, which is great. Unity, all that. But I don't know, man. Kyrie Irving's leading this one, kind of leading the pack. LeBron apparently wasn't even on that call. But now they have a lot of concerns about the way, what they call the bubble, right, over there in Orlando, and how they're going to conduct it. I think the NBA did a really good job at laying out how they want to do it. But now the players have a lot of apprehension, and I don't understand. And I think I need to read more about it because there wasn't a lot of information popping before we came on. But the message was a little muddied, right? It was a little just like murkied water for me. Let
me help you. Let me help you, T. So yeah, I pretty much got the whole story. So basically, cool. I was watching ESPN after. It's 80 people. And what it was Chris Paul, the head of the Players Union, and about 80 people, including Kevin Durant. Kyrie Irving is the one who sort of organized it.
Right.
And basically, they're saying they have concerns not just about the bubble, but about basically starting again.
From COVID, because of COVID.
No, not all of it.
That's where I'm confused.
Right, because what they're saying is, and I'm trying to put this, I guess, a little delicately because I really don't know how to spit it out the right way because I can't use it. I can't think of exactly how they worded it. So what it is it's basically they're saying that they are in a hurry to get this going to take the distraction off of the racial protest. That a lot of players feel that that's why the owners and the NBA want to get this going to help distract from that.
Okay.
And
not to discredit.
Well, let me finish.
Okay, sorry.
Let me finish.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's plenty more. Well, the other thing is, like I said, is that there was concerns about the bubble, but not so much about the bubble, but other things that are happening in there. So everybody's going to go in there and get tested stringently 3 times a week, right? All the players and the players' families and trainers and whoever's there. The people who aren't going to get tested there are the people who work for Disney.
What?
They are not going to get tested. They'll get checked for symptoms. They'll get temperature checked. They'll wear masks. And they're basically telling the players it's the same kind of exposure if you went to get takeout food. They're not going to have much interaction with them. They're not going to be going to their room for room service. They're not going to be going in every day to clean their room. They're only going to be allowed to clean their room a maximum of twice a week. And they're going to be notified when they're going to come in so that they won't be there. Or they'll do it when they're at practice or playing or whatever.
Now, why wouldn't they test their employees, though?
Because of the cost. The NBA is putting out millions and millions of dollars to do this, dude. Right?
Yeah.
So there's thousands of employees at Disneyland to get this thing going at the Disney World complex because it's hotels, it's restaurants, it's everything. So to do that, the NBA is not going to pick up that tab. So yeah, it would just be like out if they're going in public, but the thing is, it's sort of controlled.
Right.
These guys are in that area. The last thing they're talking about is injury. Right? Is a lot of guys are saying we've been shut down now for so long. Is why we have a training camp. Is why we have a full camp. Right? We get back in shape. We haven't even been able to really work out. You know, even in the off season, we're able to work out and keep working out. We can't do the same kind of workouts right now. Nobody can.
Right.
You know, they're allowed a little bit now, but that just started. So those are the main concerns, right? The other part is the type of pay disparity, because they're basically saying, no, everybody's already got paid for the games that they played, because they said they're, you know, the players union agreed they're going to prorate their salaries for the games they played. There's only 8 players in the league right now that are getting paid throughout this thing, because that's just how their contracts work. And one of them is Kyrie Irving. So he's standing up and saying there's too much of a pay disparity, and that's why they're trying to separate us by putting us at these different levels. It needs to be closer. The gap needs to be tighter. Because when these things happen, the guys like these other guys that have been around for a while, they're hurting right now.
Right.
So their decision to go back and play is based on financial need. And that nobody, and that's what these 80 guys are saying, nobody in this league should have to make that decision for financial need. And that's one of their things too, the pay disparity.
Okay.
So those are really the main things they discussed today.
So the whole idea of doing this to distract from what's going on in the country, I don't think that NBA is too progressive, and they're very, you know, in touch and always, you know, kind of on point with what's going on in the temperature of the country. So I doubt it's that. The NFL, maybe, yeah, I would say that, but the NBA.
Think of it more of what are the players thinking, T, not you specifically. What do you think the players are thinking as a whole? I'm sure there's a lot of them that have that thought, right? You know, and that's what we got to look at.
Yeah, but the players,
you know, sure. I mean, we have our own opinions, but we really doesn't even think about that. They're speaking for 80 people, including the player representative, the player union rep, Chris Paul. And they're, I mean, I'm sure they just didn't wing it and start talking about these things right there. This was a directed conference call.
Correct.
And so they talked about these issues, and these were the topics they wanted to bring up. So how many players are thinking like that, G?
You know, I would understand if the NBA had a different history with this. The NBA has done leaps and bounds for like the Black community, right? I mean, they are the Black community. The NBA is great with that type of stuff. Now they have their checkered past like everybody, right? But I just don't see that. That's just me. Okay. And I understand the players feel, if they feel that way, then they feel that way. I'm not taking that away from them at all. I'm not going to argue that point, but for me personally, I just have a hard time seeing that. They may see it differently. So my question again to you,
how many percentage of players you think are feeling that?
At least half,
I'm not concerned about mine or yours.
At least maybe half.
Half?
At least.
I agree.
You know?
And see, that's a strong enough point to make, right?
Yeah.
And that's, and you're right. I'm thinking the same thing, because I think at all points, what's the guy's name? Adam Silver, their commissioner?
Yeah.
He can pull out that card and say, hey guys, I've backed you up a lot. You need to back me up this time. He can pull that out to all these player reps and all the players, because he's done more for this league since he's been the commissioner than Stern ever did.
Look who he got rid of.
Right. So that's my point.
Yes.
So he can pull all these cards out.
He's got the swag.
But he's not, because that's not how he is.
Right.
The league has not just done this for the Black community. They are the Black community.
They are. This is
what that guy basically grasped. Look, we are nothing without the Black community.
Right.
We have to embrace it. And
that's why
I think it's like you said, at least half of those players are thinking that there's some underlying issue here. And I agree with you, T. I don't think to me, it just sounds a little bit like out there, like the conspiracy theory thing.
It's a little fringe.
But it has legs.
It does.
You got to think of of the group who's thinking about that
Well,
and what has happened to them too,
yes, exactly.
right?
Yes, 100%.
So, right, we got to put ourselves in their shoes. So
Correct.
it might even be way more than half, but we're thinking easy half. I'm
Yeah.
thinking easy half.
Easy. You know,
But
I'm
I
being
don't-
conservative.
You know,
with
but
it.
I would be shocked if it was over 60%.
Yeah. Yeah, I would too.
You know what I mean?
I-
So, but it may be.
I know
We
LeBron's
don't
already come out
know.
and said that he wants to play. You know, but
Yeah.
kind of to your point
Again, you know,
about the
but
financials.
again, too,
he's in a
I
position.
think a guy like him, yeah, he doesn't worry about that.
Yeah.
You know, his thing is, man, I only got a couple years left. I want to finish this one off. Man, we were
Right.
doing good. That's
Yeah.
more
He was
where
making
he's
a
coming
title
from.
run.
Yes. You know, and then you hear about that too. Oh, if anybody wins a title, there should be an asterisk. There should be a fucking gold star. Look at the shit they had to deal with. A fucking pandemic, a fucking protest, fucking all this other racial injustice shit in our country.
Fuck yeah.
And they fucking, that
they
should be a gold star, not
they
a fucking asterisk.
They still went out and fucking did it.
Exactly.
Despite all that. Yeah. Shit. Yeah.
So that's the way I see it, man. You know what I mean? But
No,
you know,
no.
but that's what's really going on with the NBA. So, and at this point, I think everything's still moving forward. You know, they mapped out all their situation. Not
They did.
every team's going.
right.
You know what I mean? Because there's no reason to have the teams that can't make the playoffs. There's only so many games left in the season anyway.
Right.
So those teams are out. You know, those teams though are being allowed to, I think, have an option to go there if they can get enough players to commit to go work out and do other things at the facility the rest of the season. But they're not in the playing. They're going to do some play-in game for the 9 and the 8 or something like that, a 3-game playoff or something like that, or a 2-win playoff, whoever wins 2, some shit like that. It's pretty cool.
Right.
So they're doing some new things, and fuck it, you might as well try it because you know what, next year's probably going to go back to the same old shit anyway.
It's kind of a freebie
So-
here to get experimental.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like everything, right? We need to have some kind of distraction from all this shit.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that these guys are human beings too, and they're feeling all this too, but sort of what they signed up for, man.
Well, okay.
Not just in the good times and the bad times too. They got to be there.
But not to be
Right?
Debbie Downer or nothing, but I mean, you made a comment that just doesn't sit well with me, and it's not against you. You're pointing out something that is something that people like you and I deal with, and people, our listeners, deal with every fucking day, right? Is they have a hard decision to make because of financials, going back to work. Well, you know what? How many other people around this country have to fucking deal with that don't have nice big homes or styling cars or any of that shit too, right?
Right?
How many people are facing eviction right now and worried about that shit, being homeless right now? So, you know, you got to put things into perspective too, right? They're having to make hard decisions. Well, guess what? So does everybody else around this country too right now. So I don't give them a pass on that shit. I'm sorry. That's the only thing that kind of gets to me right now. That's kind of irking me.
What do you mean as far as financials though? So
Well,
like what I mentioned
You were
with the
talking
guys
about
who
the
aren't making
disparity.
the money.
Correct.
Yeah,
But,
right.
hey.
So there's only 8 guys out of 600
Okay, but they
that are
all
getting paid right now.
they still have big homes. They still make
Not
under-
all of them, man.
under normal
Not-
circumstances, they make more than you and I would make in fucking 10 years.
I understand that, T. But okay, I'm going to go back to another example. I'm going to jump sports. Okay, and this is just a perfect example, and that's why I'm going to use it. Cody Bellinger is the defending National League MVP.
Okay.
He's set to make the most money he's ever made in his life this year, $600,000.
Yeah.
$600,000. If he would have played the way that they wanted him to take his cuts and all the things that they wanted him to do, he would have been making about 80 grand this year.
Right.
80 fucking $1,000 for the National League MVP.
Right.
This is a pro sports.
Correct.
This is not a job where you're going in and punching a clock.
Correct.
So yeah, there are guys that don't make that money yet because they're still on it under contract or they're doing a lot more than their contract is paying them. So yeah, they don't have the fancy house. They don't have that security yet.
I understand
And
that,
that's
right?
the disparity.
But let me
And in the league, There's a lot of those guys in the NBA.
I get that. Well, they got fewer than other sports though, because the NBA, even their minimum is a lot higher because that's how it was structured, which is good, right? I'm not telling people don't get your fucking money. If you can do it, get your money. But what I'm saying is, let's use your example of Cody Bellinger, right? $600,000 a year in a normal year. Yes, for the NL MVP, grossly underpaid. Grossly. But if you put it into perspective of the normal guy, we always say our show is about the listeners, or the average person, right? Put yourself in that shoes and say, that's still a hell of a lot more fucking money than a lot of these people do. Even at 80,000, the average person in the US makes, I think, less than $30,000 a year. So think about that. That's what that's where I'm coming from, right? If they're going to complain
I don't
about
think it's that low, T, but it's low.
That's my point. Like when you think of the NBA guys that are, they have to make those hard decisions. Guess what? Everybody else has to right now too. So I can't feel bad for them. I can't feel bad for them from that perspective.
No, you don't have to. But put it into this, right? Just like anybody with anything, right? I understand people can only get certain jobs. People only want to do certain jobs. People feel they do these jobs and need to get paid more. That's across the board, not even just talking about sports, just
correct.
In general.
Yeah, you're right.
You have a choice in life. If you don't like what you're doing, go out and work and do something else and make better of it. Choose a career, not a job, right? Do some schooling to get you a technical background, whatever it is to make more money.
Right. We
have those options in the United States. If there isn't jobs in your area, we have the ability to move. There's so many things out there that we can do, but unfortunately, a lot of people just say, no, I'm good. And that's part of the problem too. Now, it's the same thing with these guys. Look around them. Okay, if I'm a butcher in a market, okay, let's use that example because I work in the meat industry, right? So I'm a butcher in a market, and I start working, and I'm making $6 an hour. But there's a guy next to me, and he's been here for 4 years. He's making $30 an hour. But maybe in 4 years, I'm not going to make 30 an hour. It depends. There's chances I won't. How am I going to feel? Am I going to be as motivated as that guy? And what if that guy's not putting out as much as me? What if he's not the league MVP? It's a human reaction. It's not about just the financial there. They have the right to say no if they don't want to. I understand that. My point is they're not showing heart. I just used the example that's the same to me. Look at the NBA. The number one guy is saying, fuck it, I want to go. Let's go, guys. Let's get this going. Get our sport back. And what's Major League Baseball doing?
Yeah, wait a minute. But the number one guy is saying, let's go. But everybody else is worried about other things. And he's saying, fuck it, I don't care. Let's just go. So it sends
everybody else.
So, not everybody
else.
You
said that.
Hold on.
I'm talking about
that. Okay. I'm talking about those that were on the call. Okay.
That's 80. And here's the other thing.
Because
the guy who led the call
they're representatives.
And the big name guys, they're not even going to play.
No, Kyrie's not even playing this season.
Kevin Durant too. Yeah. So that's the whole point. Yeah. They're not even going to be there.
So why even fucking have the call?
Because it wasn't just about playing. It was why they were playing. And it was about the salary disparity. That why are you having these underlying guys? They have to say, yes, I have to go play because I need to get paid. That was what we just said, T. That was the biggest issue. That only 8 guys are getting paid right now when all of them should be getting paid.
And again, my point is
that's what they're saying.
Those are the fucking hard choices that the everyday average person is facing every single fucking day. So I can care less about that bullshit with them.
No, but isn't that what our whole society was built on when even unions went into places to help with labor, to help with these things and make it right? make it fair. I'm not saying that it's fair because these guys make $500,000 and I make $100,000. I'm not an athlete. My career is not just going to be for 8 or 9 years. I'm a food scientist. I'm going to go for 35 years. Okay, I chose that. That's what was put onto me. That's what I got.
Right.
So I got to deal with that in life. I don't have that other choice to make. These guys have a finite career. They have to understand that, T. Right? They can't make that choice like a regular person because it's not the same. It's sort of the same, but it isn't, because you know what? What are they going to do after their career? They're not going to make that money again. They got to get everything they can now. And the reality is a lot of them probably barely making ends meet because they got everything they got to deal with. 10 baby mama, whatever else. You hear that.
Again,
right?
Choices you make in life.
You know, and that's their choice, right?
Yeah.
But again, whatever percentage that is, that's what they're saying. So think of it even in the union market, or even what I talked about in the marketplace. The motivation to play is different. The motivation to go is different depending on the pay. And that's what they're saying. It shouldn't be. The league's big enough. Everyone should be taken care of in this time. They shouldn't be have to make the decision based on that. And you're right, T. People make a decision to live. But again, it's not apples to apples because we're not looking at it the same. Right? I mean, again, this guy has a 5-year career.
I don't know. What's the average NBA career? I don't know.
I mean, no, think of how many guys, T, you really see lasting a long time. A lot of guys come in the league, man. Not many guys last because a lot of guys keep coming in every year.
Right. No, right? I'm honestly asking the question.
It's the same, like, I don't know, but it's got to be small.
Yeah, because
it's like the NFL.
Well,
NFL's 3.5 years, dude.
And what is a running back? A year and a half, something like that, average?
No. No, running back still more than that. But
is it? Okay.
The total is 3.5, and the worst one's linemen.
Yeah.
You know, but we see like these linemen that have been there for years and years. Those guys are going to start going away because now you start looking at other guys and you just can't handle it.
Right.
It's a tough business.
Right.
So yeah, it's a different mentality too when they're making that decision, right?
I think
they have different factors.
But here's where I have a problem with it. This is my holdup, right, with this whole thing, and it goes back to baseball too. This isn't a normal year. This isn't a normal situation, right? If you want to work, if you want to do it, then just fucking do it. Just man up and do it because we're not in a normal situation. If this
We've said that the last 3 weeks, but now but it's as like what we're realizing, it's not our opinion anymore.
No. But this is our show, so this is our opinion, right? And we could say whatever we feel.
And we've been saying that for 3 weeks. But I think the bigger question is, isn't it seeming like there's more of those guys that are on the other side now, especially in baseball, where we were saying that, hey, you know what, maybe it's just about, the owners. I don't know if it's really all the owners do.
No, I don't think
like
it is.
Like you said,
anymore.
right, at some point, I think what you were getting to, for the love of the sport, this is a fucking different time. Let's get this thing going.
Right. So if you want to,
the players are really into that in Major League Baseball.
If you're that concerned about it, then do it. If you're concerned about COVID or whatever your other concerns are, and you can't get over it, then don't fucking do it. Right? Don't go.
I agree, and I'm sure there'd be some guys that just even probably good players say, you know what, I'm not going to go. Okay, but the show goes on.
Dwight Howard, I heard him say that he's probably he's in the mindset
that asthma though, dude.
Yeah,
he's got asthma.
No, I understand that.
So for him, his concern, it's legitimate.
Yes,
right. And there's plenty of guys like that in sports.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I was getting at was, for him, that's a legitimate concern, and he says he may not play it all the rest of the season because of that, and I get that. I respect that because that is a health issue, and people die from asthma.
Think about this, T. And this is what I've said from the first show. What's he waiting for? Is he ever going to play again? Because even if there's a vaccine, it's not going to be 100% foolproof.
Well,
so is he ever going to play again? That's the question, right? What is he thinking in his head? I won't play this year, but do we have a vaccine next year? Maybe. Like I mentioned to you, vaccine is not going to be 100%.
Yeah.
So there's still going to be a risk.
Maybe.
It'll be a lessened risk. But you know what I mean? This is the mentality of people, right?
Yeah. But I mean, everybody has to make the decision for themselves and what they feel is right.
Right.
Now,
Based on whatever they have inside them or whatever's going on around them,
Correct.
Their situation.
Now, I understand his situation. I also understand that he doesn't have guaranteed money. So if he doesn't play, he doesn't get paid, period. And his contract, there was no guaranteed money when he signed with the Lakers.
Who cares?
Right.
Who cares?
So for him,
this guy's made so much money in his career.
Correct.
He's not worried about that
exactly. For him, he's good. Right. But to your point, not everybody has that. For whatever reason.
That's my whole point.
For whatever reason.
And
I
that's
still
what they're
don't
saying.
feel bad. I can't sit here and feel bad.
Whatever. And it's not about feeling bad. What they're saying is in the way that the league is structured, this shouldn't be happening to guys right now. That was the big point.
But isn't that the CBA?
Right, because the league.
I mean, really? I mean, when we get down to the nitty gritty, that's your CBA.
And that's what I've been waiting for you to say. Yes, absolutely is.
That's your fucking CBA.
You're going to go ahead and blame them for stuff that you've been approving.
That's your leadership.
Right? So, I mean, hey, it is what it is. But again, these are unprecedented times. These things weren't written in the CBA.
Right. So you got to fucking be able to
they
come to
expecting the ownership to step up. And the ownership saying, no, we paid you guys for the games you played.
Didn't they pay them for games they didn't play too for a little while?
No, because there was only, and this is the part I really don't get, T. I think there's only like 12, maybe the most teams, 14 games that they didn't play. So they played like almost 68 games, right?
Yeah, for the regular
season. They made most of their money.
Yeah,
they made most of their money. 80%.
They did.
85% of the money. That's what I don't get over there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's sort of astonishing to me, but it's not really about who got paid and whatever else. It's the point that there's such a big gap between pay ranges.
Yeah, but again, it goes
between
back
the guys
to your
coming
CBA.
in.
You know what I mean? I mean, fuck, that's your...
Yeah, but the reality is all
union.
pro sports are like that. All pro sports are like that. The only one that wasn't like that finally got wise to it was the NFL. Because when these high draft picks, these number one quarterbacks would come in, they have to pay them the farm.
Yeah.
Whether they could play or not.
Yeah, no, that was
$20 million signing bonus. You know what I mean? So they had to put a fucking rookie cap in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they all have to do that.
So if you're that concerned about the gap,
you know what, hey, this rookie's good, I could change his contract. That's on them, but these teams don't do that.
If you're so concerned about the gap, why don't you just pull all that money and divide it up by evenly throughout all the guys?
What money?
So if they're worried about the pay gap, right?
Correct.
For them starting. Whatever you get paid, let's say it was you and it was me and you're getting paid, $1 million and I'm getting paid, let's say 500,000. Okay. That's 1.5. Why not pull all that together and then just divide it up by every guy that's fucking playing? If you're that concerned about that disparity.
What do you mean? I'm missing you here, Keith.
Okay, so they're worried about the pay gap, right?
Correct.
You got 20 teams or 22 teams that's going to be doing it. Each team has X amount of players.
No. You're missing the point.
Okay.
Again, you missed it completely. It's going forward. This pandemic.
That's what I'm talking about.
Created guys that. I'll finish. This pandemic created a situation now where even where guys, like we just said, lost 15% of their pay, they still need to go play to pay off their shit because they didn't achieve end of year bonuses. They didn't achieve certain things that they thought they were going to get and were counting on. What they're saying is going forward. Because in a time like this, guys shouldn't be having to make that decision to go play right now based on that. Not that they're going right now and that they divvy up the money going right now. That's not what it's about. It's going forward. They're saying there needs to be better. And you're right, it's a CBA. But how much were they allowed to get too? Right? At some point, you got to know in the negotiation what you got.
Right.
And I know they've been making strides. But what they're saying is going forward, because in a situation, if it happens again like this, no one should be in a position to have to go play because of finances. That's all they're saying. Not right now, this time. You know what I mean? They're saying if something like this happens again, the
I thought
league
you were
should be
talking about.
structured enough.
I thought it was going into the bubble, going into the Orlando bubble.
Because it's pretty much, it's not, it's like I said, T, there's only 8 guys getting paid throughout the year.
Right.
So out of so many guys, there's only 8. Everyone's going to get paid playoff money. They all get the same playoff money every year. So it's like the NFL, right? If you go to a playoff game, the loser gets so much, the winner gets so much. The next round, you get a higher amount. Loser gets so much, winner gets so much.
Right.
Same in the Super Bowl, right? Same in the finals. So that's what they're going to get, right? And that's sort of how it is, right? But, I mean, yeah, it's still good money. I mean, think about it. If they go, so say, I don't know who's Caruso. He's at the end of the Lakers bench, right? Probably guy makes what minimum is probably $400,000 or $500,000.
Yeah.
So he probably made, $400,000 this year because, he lost his 10%, 50%, whatever it is. So say he made 400. He could probably make 400 in the playoffs, right?
Right.
Because if he wins every round, maybe in the first round, he gets $35,000 a player for winning. Second round, $65,000. There's 100. Third round in the semis or the conference finals or whatever, how they're going to call it, whatever it is, you get 110,000 if you win. Now you're at 200. You win the finals, you get another 150. Plus, he might even have some incentive in his contract. He's basically being able to double his contract, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So to him, it's worth going. I got to go. I'm only going to play 5 or 6 years. This is my chance to double my contract this year. But for a guy making $20 million, it's 800,000, 400,000, a big deal. And that's what they're saying, Steve.
Yeah, but I mean,
right? That everyone should at least be in a position to say, I don't need to go to get that $400,000.
But that's the same. But that's the same thing in baseball, right? You just laid out that the fact that the haves, right, the Mike Trouts of the world are saying, "Fuck it, I don't need to go. I don't, But then you got the guy at the bottom going, "Dude, I just want to play. I need to get paid," right?
I didn't say that. I don't think so, because I think there's a lot of guys on the bottom telling them, "Fuck you," just like the Cody Bellinger. I'm not going to go play even 50 games for $80,000. I just said that. So, yeah, I don't think so. That's why I think it's completely different. You know what I mean? Because I don't think so. I think there's guys on the bottom like that saying, fuck no, I'm not going to go play for $80,000, dude. No, I'm not. I think there's guys, and that's the problem in baseball compared to the other league. That's my whole point. Right? Cody Bellinger doesn't want to play, man. He's a National League MVP. He's one of the faces of the fucking Major League Baseball. Mike Trout doesn't want to play.
Mike Trout.
But you got a guy who would make 8. But you would have a guy, instead of making $40 million, Mike Trout, he's going to make $8 or $9 million for his prorated year. And Cody Bellinger is going to make $80,000. Yeah, no, the guy on the bottom doesn't want to go play. Even worse than Major League Baseball. That's the point, right? That's why I told you they're not even the same. There's no heart. It's about heart, because like you said, no matter what it is, they're going to say, you know what, we're going to do this for the people. Because we'll get taken care of on the back end.
Yeah.
Right? Baseball guys have a lot longer career.
They do.
Than NBA and NFL.
NBA is 4.5 years.
So that's like I said, to me, and this isn't new. They never show heart when they have opportunities to step up. Historically. So to me, this is completely apples to oranges. And I just spelled it out, right? Because the guy on the bottom in the NBA needs to go. He might only be in there 4 or 5 more years. The guy in the fucking Major League Baseball played 10, 11 years sitting on that bench, making $550,000. That's minimum.
Look how long guys extend their career with the DH. They all go to the American League just because they can hit.
And you're making a few $1 million to hit the ball, to go up to batting practice, dude. Think about it.
Yeah.
But your National League MVP, the way the owners had it structured, he was going to make just under $80,000. No. I would have told him, go fuck yourself too. I'm not going to go play for that.
We called it out last season when he was tearing it up last season, and we were showing how he was essentially outmanning Mike Trout and the paid disparity. And I pointed that out, right? So I was showing, look, this guy's only getting paid this much money. Mike Trout's getting paid that much money. And look at what his production is compared to Trout. We talked about that.
The point is, though, is at this time, even if Trout went to play, he's still taken care of. $8 or $9 million each, Chatty.
Yeah, he gets
$80,000.
He can get way.
I make more than that, dude.
Yeah, he can get way more than that.
This is the National League MVP in a major sport. He should not be making $80,000, right? The owners are embarrassing and insulting these guys by doing that. That's the difference in that sport. There is no comparison to what I'm talking about
Now,
on both sides.
Here's the other thing too is, and I'm not defending the owners, but how much money is being lost because of no fans? You know, because they're pointing that out, right? NBA's not pointing that out. NBA's not playing that card.
Unfortunately, because the NBA is sucking it up.
Right.
They know this isn't going to be like this forever.
No, I know that. I know that. I'm not. That's why I said I'm not defending them. I'm not defending the owners.
And that's the whole point, right? Then what's your point?
No. I was just saying. I'm just trying to throw it out there. I mean, think about how much money is being lost just in general, right?
Yeah, yeah, but of course they signed up for the good and the bad.
Correct. It's a marriage.
So they've been in the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, minimally, the worst team in Major League Baseball has doubled its worth.
Florida Marlins.
So, dog,
no,
these owners can't say shit.
No, I fucking agree with
you. Who cares
100%.
about how much money they're losing? Because, like you said, yeah, the other. But here again, what did you say last week? It's a business.
It is.
That solidifies my whole point. Because that's the leadership, that's the mentality, that's the culture of that whole organization. It's a business. And the owners and the players are thinking the same.
You know, the only people that I see.
Because the players are forced to.
Well, yeah. Well, they have to.
Right? If the owners are going to be thinking about exactly.
Yeah, they have
because
to.
if we're not, we're going to get stooped.
Yes.
We're not going to get stooped.
You're going to
we're
get
the guys doing this shit.
Yes, exactly.
So right now, in this time, there's no heart, Key.
They're going to bend them over with no
all of them as a business. They're looking at it as a business.
Correct.
So even the players are looking at it as a business.
But the only people that
when the owners stick it in their ass, they're going to say no.
Yeah, the only people I see that I feel for that have lost out in this whole entire thing with the pandemic, with everything, are the employees that work at the arenas. Because those people, nobody's talking about them. Nobody's talking about what's happening to them right now. A lot of them, they needed that job. You know what I mean?
Well, but they are, T, and I want to say all of the NBA teams, and I know some NHL teams, and some MLB teams did too. I want to say at least half of them did in the beginning.
In the beginning, they paid them. Yes, but then they
didn't just pay them one time. No, they didn't pay him a lump. No. They paid him for like 6 weeks.
Yeah, they were paying
for like 6 weeks.
Yeah, they were.
So that just ended about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So yeah, that's really what's been going on. So a lot of them were doing it. I don't think all of them were.
No, because remember,
but I know all the NBA did because they only had 12 games left.
Well, who was it? It was somebody from Philly in the NBA that he was donating some of his salary to pay for the employees over there at the arena. He personally did.
A lot of them did.
Yeah, a lot of them did.
did.
But I mean, what does that tell you?
They all did.
They were shaming because
all they did was add to the fund because the team had already. Well, okay, hold on. Let me retract.
Yeah.
Some of the players started the movement and the team followed them.
Yes.
Some of the teams started it and the players followed them. So Correct. It did happen both ways.
Well, but
I just said the other one first.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the other way around. It wasn't started by the players. It was started by the ownership on one team. I forget what team it was. I think it was New Orleans.
Right. Yeah, I think
the owner of New Orleans, which is the biggest fucking racist, fucking did it. And we want to thank everybody for sticking around. We want to thank everybody for dealing with our madness. Again, everybody be safe. Things are going on out there right now, and things are changing. Our world is changing. And we got to be safe. It's like we talked about. It's not just all the racial injustice and the social injustice that's happening right now. It's everything else, and we still have a pandemic going on. Right? So, folks, please be safe. We want to thank you guys for sticking around and dealing with us at all points. You know what I mean? So go ahead and take over, T, and sign us out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, King. Our world is changing, but I think it's changing for the best. But just like you said, we're losing sight of the fact that we are still knee deep in a pandemic. Yeah, things are starting to open. It's starting to be good, but we're still getting a lot of cases. So we still got to be safe. We got to be mindful and thoughtful, right? So you just got to be smart about things. We know what we're up against right now. And we know how we can kind of combat that. And that's all we got to do. We got to just be smart about it. Nobody's saying that you got to live inside a little bubble. Nobody's saying that you can't do normal things anymore because it is opening up and you're going to get back to
Listen to that, T. You got to start opening up. We all do.
I have. Yeah. And I have been. I've been pushing myself to do that very thing. Right. So you're absolutely right. And I'm preaching about it because I'm doing it myself and I'm pushing myself to do that too. Right. So it's not anything that we have to fear, but it's something we have to be smart about. Right. So stay safe, but be smart about things. Go back to your life, start getting back to normal as much as you can, but be smart about it. If masks are recommended, but not, mandatory, it's probably a smart thing to wear a mask, right? Because it helps those around you and you. So that's all I'm saying, right? So for the Double I Show, I'm Sweet T.
And I'm RW King.
And we are
out.
Checking in from the left coast where we take sound that combines sunshine with rhyme, move 'em around. Take it slow, watch the smoke we blow. Bring California swing and this thing for show. But hey there.